Hey Darren, should the monitor in there be on?
Channel 10 seems to be off. 18 works. Let me turn it on 18.
Oh no, that's fine. Just thinking, that way cause sometimes we can see if it goes off.
I got to call Wow. Why don't...
Good evening, board members and residents. I would like to call to order our regular board meeting for Monday, July 28, 2014. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Battanti?
Here.
Mr. Brado?
Here.
Mr. Caprell?
Here.
Mr. Tominello is asked to be excused. Mr. York?
Here.
Mr. Witt, here. Mr. Verkest?
Here, thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including approval of the regular board meeting minutes of July 14, 2014, approval of the bills in the amount of $1,022,572.43, and approval of the June 2014 revenue and expenditure report.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we've got a motion by Mr. York. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Caprell. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is the approval of the regular agenda. I'm not aware of any amendments to the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Battanti to approve the regular agenda. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next are announcements. A few announcements here. Unfortunately, our township was directly affected by yesterday's storm. Around 5,000 DTE Energy customers within Harrison Township lost power. The power is expected to return by 11:30 p.m. tonight for most of our residents. There are some isolated pockets where they're predicting as late as Wednesday for restoration. Detailed information regarding the outages can be found by calling DTE Energy 800-477-4747. If you have access to the web, there's also information on the township's website. I know we had a few contacts from residents asking about chipping of downed branches and debris. There are communities in our area or in the county that have included the removal of debris through a chipping process in their waste hauler contract. So we had folks say, well, I understand my brother or my friend who lives in a neighboring township or community, they send a truck around to remove that debris. That wasn't one of the services that we'd asked for in our waste hauler contract when it went out for quote. Now, within about a year's time or less than a year's time, we're going to go through that process of rebidding that contract. We may look at that, may be something worthwhile, but right now, the bad news is we don't have a chipping service. The good news is you're not paying for it, so. But it is not a part of our contract, and it's not something that we offer or that other communities offer. That's something they offer through their waste hauler contract.
But you can bundle them as long as they're of a smaller size. I think it's 3 or 4 foot length,
Three-
and then bundled
is it
at your
4 feet?
curb, and that will go.
Yeah,
So
they
if
will
you-
still haul.
That will go.
Yep, they'll haul brush. Not large logs, but brush.
Yeah, I think officially it's branches less than 2 inch in diameter.
Okay.
4-foot bundles.
Yep. The Harrison Township Public Library is hosting multiple upcoming events. Enjoying and Controlling Critters in Your Yard will be a presentation taking place on Wednesday, July 30th at 7 p.m. Refreshments will be reserved. Registration is required. To register for a library event, please call the library 586-329-1261 or stop in the library and sign up. Remember, for all library events, children must be accompanied by an adult. For information on other events, You can contact the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445, or again, visit our website, harrison-township.org. Mr. Camperl, you have an announcement?
Yes, as the Parks and Recreation liaison, Parks and Recreation is gonna have a movie night at Waterfront Park. It's August 28th. That's a Thursday. The movie starts at 8:15. The evening starts at 6 o'clock, which there's music by the George Brother Band at 6:30. And there's a whole host of things to do at the event. So please come out. It's absolutely free. And the movie that is playing is Despicable Me 2. So we'd like to have everybody come out and enjoy the night.
All right, great. Thank you for that. Also, we have an announcement from a representative of Congresswoman Miller's office. Mr. Don Brown is here. Wanted to address the board, so we'll give him that opportunity right now.
Thank you, Supervisor Verkais, members of the board, members of the public. Thank you for being here. Let me have a few minutes to speak. Congressman Miller just brings greetings to the board, and as you know, as a resident of Harrison Township, she cares very deeply about what's happening in this community, and just wants to, in the neighborhood, wanted to stop by and say hello to everyone and let you know that her office stands ready to assist you and members of your community, as well as any member of the public that needs her assistance from her office. She's got two offices, one in Washington, obviously, and then she's got a district office here in Shelby Township, where I work out of. As some of you may or may not know, Congresswoman, being a member of Congress, is one of 435 members of Congress, and her population in the district is roughly 710,000 persons per district. That covers 6 counties here in Michigan. Basically, the thumb now: Huron and Sanilac, Tuscola County, Sanilac, and Lapeer County, and northern part of Macomb County here where we're at. And, so it's a big district spread over a wide area, but still generally the same amount of population as any other congressional district. And she tries hard to make sure that she can communicate with all of you and more importantly, hear from you. As a representative of the people, she thinks it's very important that she's able to have good communication with the people that she represents. And one of the ways that she likes to do that is through her newsletters. She's got an e-newsletter that she sends out to people that want to sign up. They can go to that website at www.candicemiller.house.gov, and you could see what's going on from her official office website, and you could sign up for her e-newsletter there. We want to be viewed as your liaison, the issues you have with federal government, whether it's a community project that the township's working on, or an individual, maybe a resident's got an issue with Social Security for their parents, or maybe it's as simple as a visa that they're trying to get and having some trouble getting that implemented through the bureaucracy. Our office is available to help you and residents on simple matters or big things. If it's your problem, if you're having a problem with the government, we want you to call on her. Congressman Miller's tonight's in Washington. House is right now is, well, as you may know, she's chairman of the House Administration Committee. That's called the mayor. Sometimes they refer to it as the mayor because that deals with all the day-to-day operations of running the House and the government around the Capitol. And so she deals with some similar issues that you deal with here as a board, but it's for her colleagues in the House. She's also vice chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, and she's chair of the Border and Maritime Subcommittee, which deals with the Army Corps of Engineers, and well, work closely with the Army Corps of Engineers being on the lake, and so we have their ear and help advocate for issues that are important to us here in our community, especially with all this lakefront that we have. Congressman Miller is also a member of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee in the Congress, and that's a lot of our federal dollars come to the state to help support our state in their road projects, and she continues to be an advocate for the state on that issue as well as our local communities. And we work closely with you and want to be an advocate for grants and other support to get some more of our tax dollars back here from Washington, here in our district where we spend it. We pay a lot in taxes, and we certainly want to make sure that we get as much of that money back in our district as we can. And so we want to use the available programs through grants and other resources as possible to help support the community. A few of the issues that Congresswoman's working on right now is the appropriation bills. Much like your board and other government bodies, it's budget time for us in Washington, and They have 12 appropriation bills that the Congress is required to appropriate money to run the government. They have passed 7 of them, and they're working on the remaining 12 as they get close to the year end here in September. So they worked through those. One of those bills was the Defense Appropriation Bill. As Harrison Township well knows, Selfridge is a big part of our district and a big part of your community. And one of those ongoing issues was the issue over the A-10s, whether the A-10 would continue to have funding going into the next year. The administration had wanted to cut the funding for the A-10 aircraft, and majority of the colleagues in the Congress and across the country didn't think that was a good idea, simply because it wouldn't give our war fighters on the ground the appropriate support aircraft to support them in the field. Without having an adequate replacement, though they have one in the works that isn't ready yet, it would be premature to cut that funding. And Congressman Miller added an appropriation amendment, an amendment on the Defense Appropriations Bill, which was passed almost unanimously in the House and sent now where it sits in the Senate, waiting for their action. And if the Senate passes that in their appropriation process, those A-10s will be funded for another year. And obviously, it's important not only for our national defense, but also on a more personal matter here in the township. We've got many men and women that are associated with that A-10 unit at Selfridge, and they'll obviously be able to keep their jobs and continue to help with the local economy. Another topic, and now this will be the last one, the VA. The VA's had an issue, as many of you know, about some of the problems with services, delay in getting services through the Veteran Affairs Office. They're working on a compromise. In fact, there was a compromise announced last night that they're still trying to work through the details tonight that would fix that wait. And possibly one of those solutions possibly could be, giving our veterans more choices instead of going to the VA hospital. Give them some more options in the marketplace to go out and obtain their services. And mainly, obviously, we all want to make sure that we honor the men and women who serve, put their lives on the line for us, and want to see that problem gets resolved so that no man or woman has to wait for services they need, and because of whatever they had, whatever reason they need the care. So those are just a couple of issues, but again, I just wanted to say hello. I passed up my cards to many of you, and I met you before the meeting, and just want to let you know we're available, and consider us an asset to you and a resource to your board. If something you need, you got a question about something, how to get a hold of something that maybe you're looking for, just call me or our office, or we stand ready to be of assistance. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time and giving me a few minutes tonight, and I'll stand by. Oh, one more thing. I've got some contact cards. Congresswoman Miller puts out these contact cards, and on this is a list of all the phone numbers for DC office or the Washington or the local office in Shelby Township. And there's just some little talking points on things that are available to you at the district office. Basically, things I've just told you. But it's a handy little reference card. There's also a little map on there that shows the district where she's at, and our email and Facebook and Twitter and all those other social media is all available to us, to you, through our office. So, again, we just stand ready to say hello and work with you in the future. All right?
All right, excellent.
Thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We're very fortunate to have strong representation by Congresswoman Miller, and we're proud to have her as a citizen here in Harrison Township. I believe it was in the 2012 State of the Township address, I listed the top 10 things about Harrison Township, and one of them was the fact that we have great representation both at the state and federal level. Okay,
Just just a separate announcement. Yeah, the clerk's office will be open from 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. on this Saturday, August 2nd, for the purposes of processing absentee ballots. So if you need one, you can get one that day. We'll be in the office from 9 until 2. So you'd have to fill in an application. Please bring your driver's license, because that's the only way we can give you your ballot on that day. So.
okay. Okay, next on our agenda is item B1 from the Water and Sewer Department, an approval to hire an administrative clerk in the Water and Sewer Department. Mr. Axtell.
Yes, Mr. Burkesta, we've had posting out for the position, and I think it's the largest response we've had, approximately 100 applications, close to 100 applications. We actually interviewed over 30 applicants, which took a great amount of time and effort. This was the highest quality pool that I've ever seen apply here for any position at the township. Mr. York, the treasurer, Mr. Verkest, and Mr. Witt, and also Mrs. Ryan, the assessor, and Mr. Demchek, the deputy supervisor, put a lot of effort forth, and we interviewed many people, and I think we were all impressed with the quality of individuals that came forward.
Difficult decision.
Yes, it was a very difficult decision, and the sad thing is there's only one position and so many qualified people, but we have come forward with an individual, Mrs. Martha Bobstein, and so I am bringing that forward to you tonight to ask for approval to hire this person to fill the vacancy in my water and sewer department.
All right.
Make a motion to hire Martha Bobsian. I guess
Probationary level.
I guess we didn't
Entry.
ask her when she's gonna start, but I guess when she can start,
Upon notification, to be fair to her current employer, she would like to give the 2 weeks' notice,
Sure.
which is commendable for anyone, and so it should be shortly after that time.
Okay.
I make a motion to hire Martha Bobsian.
Okay. Subject to the normal probationary
Yep.
period, right?
Yep.
All right, we've got,
Is she related to, didn't we have a Bobsey that worked here before at one
yep,
time?
yeah, as a
Is it
matter of
relation
fact,
or
yeah,
no?
sure, yeah, her husband is a part-time electrical inspector with the
Okay.
township for, gosh, I don't know,
recognize the name.
9 years maybe?
At least.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And I will say, and anybody that knows me knows that I'm against the
No, I
husband-wife
just
thing.
recognize the name. It's,
But after going through all of the candidates with everybody,
yep.
I think she is the best fit for that position
I-
at this point.
I think we all felt that way
Yeah.
through the interview process, so no doubt about it.
Is there a second on that motion yet?
No, nope.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
Okay, good. All right, so we've got a motion by Mr. York, with support by Mr. Brado to hire Mrs. Martha Bobseen and the administrative clerk position in the water and sewer department, subject to probationary period and testing and whatnot, pre-qualification hiring. Any discussion? Is there public comment on this? No, okay. All right, hearing no discussion and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next on our
Thank you.
agenda,
I just wanted to say thank you, board, and thank you to everyone for, this was a time-consuming issue and very important issue, and I'm glad so many people came forward, but it took all of us to get together and get through this, and I appreciate it very much.
well,
I'm just glad
and,
we don't have any more interviews.
Oh, my gosh. it
well,
was-
and we do have the
Grueling.
potential for a retirement in the spring of next year. So I believe there's a strong handful of folks that we'd be able to reach out to see if they're still in the job market, because there was just an excellent pool of candidates. And thank you for your efforts. And it's also important for this board to remember and for residents to understand that the process is about a 5-month probationary period. So while we do make every effort to try to screen the employees or candidates to hire the best employee, there's still a process that they have to go through before they're really a full employee within the township. Next on our agenda is item C1, regarding the road improvement policy. Board members, we voted at the June 23rd regular board meeting to place a millage question on the ballot for up to 1.5 mills for up to 20 years for the purpose of repairing and reconstructing roads in the township. We discussed that we needed to inform the voters how the funds would be spent if the millage were to pass and how decisions would be made regarding those funds. So at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, we discussed the policy, and there was some input from several board members, several good ideas. Based on that input, I've made some improvements or revisions to the road improvement policy. And so I'm presenting it now for reconsideration, discussion, or hopefully adoption.
Make a motion to adopt the Harrison Township road improvement policies as presented and revised.
All right. Got a motion by Mr. Witt. Is there a second?
Support.
All right. Support by Mr. Batanti. Again, this is our best stab at it as time goes on. It could be that this policy, once it's distributed or advertised, there might be residents that have worthwhile input, but this is our best shot where we stand now. It appears there's public comment. We'll open up the floor for public comment.
Bill Serville, resident. I was at the workshop, or whatever you call it, when you first presented this to the public, and you were originally talking about 1¼ mils. There was a lot of discussion about that drainage needed to be addressed, so you added 1/4 mil for drainage. I see nothing in here about drainage. That has to be first and foremost the most important item on here. You have item 5, funds will be used to pay for the maintenance of gravel roads within the township. All right, why would we do this when the county already maintains our county? Don't they give us one treatment for dust control, and they grade and fill holes as needed? Why would we take over that from the county? I guess you're not gonna answer that, but that's my point.
I will, but yeah, that's all right.
So, but the drainage is the most important thing. If you recall, I got up here 3 years ago when you were gonna pave Town Hall. It was stated that there wasn't enough money to do the drainage. Look at Town Hall. 3 years and it's all cracked up. It's been sealed already. You know, the cracks have been sealed and they need it again. Drainage has to be done before you pave any roads. And then one more comment for the public to know. The drainage is not gonna get paid for with 1/4 mil. It takes more than that. But even if we had that, with the cost of inflation and everything, some people are gonna pay for 20 years and they'll never see their road finished. This whole concept is a bad idea for that reason. We do need to improve the roads, but I'm a believer that SAD is the best way to do it. If all of them were paved, then this would be a good idea to maintain them, but not right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional public comments? Okay.
Oh, Michael Miller, 25155 Orchid Street. Recently, I've been identified in a neighbor dispute. I think that Mr. Burkett and
I apologize to interrupt you. At the end of the meeting, we'll allow for public comment on any item, but during the regular meeting.
On
we only-
that particular-
Yeah, we're on the
I
agenda
understand.
item.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. If there's no other public, oh, okay.
Jim Senstock, 31698 CN1. I also attended your workshop on this issue, and I was kind of interested at the time and did bring up the issue of maintenance for water control, or, you know, road control, water drainage. The 1/2 mil ain't gonna do it. So basically, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to do drainage, or hopefully you will, because that's the only way the road's going to last. And you're going to do the drainage, and the drainage is going to eat up roughly half of the amount of money that you've got allocated. To fix any road, it's at least half. And I know that because I was involved in a road repair project out on the street in front of my house less than 5 years ago. So now you're going to be paying, you basically have this thing set up for 20 years and you're making all these promises to all these different groups here, and the first road you use is going to use up 50% more funding than it's supposed to, according to your millage. I think this is a poorly thought out plan. It's a recipe for disaster or for disappointment for the township residents. All of concrete roads in the township, and there are a lot of them, are never going to see a penny. My road in front of my house is never going to see a penny. Every year, this 1.5 mils is going to go up 5%, at least, because of the Headley tax thing, inflation. And then I'm looking at this thing, and in your last thing that you distributed last week, or the last meeting, nothing was said about maintaining of gravel roads in the township. It's not in here. It's thrown in here now. And I guess I have the same question. We already get those gravel roads maintained. You're trying to push them into getting new roads. What are you going to do with that money other than increase the general fund? Because now you won't have to put the money into the chloride treatment or whatever it is, you'll be able to just, oh, well, our general fund just went up because we got it here instead. Additionally, it says here under path and trail maintenance program, the separate fund will be, 2% of the funds will be placed into a separate fund for the purpose of maintaining and improving the non-motorized path system. I've stood up here at every meeting that you ever approved a path and asked, how are you going to maintain it? And you said we were going to pay for it out of the general fund. Well, now you've transferred it over to here. I guess the general fund's going to get another big chunk of money thrown into it. This is a poorly thought out plan. It's not going to go anywhere, especially with these kind of things in it. You're going to give money to condo associations, what, to bribe them? They're supposed to be paying for their own roads. I think you ought to rethink this thing and bring it back again for another try. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. I'll do the best I can to answer questions that some residents brought forward. We did discuss in the workshop a 1.25 millage. That was the recommendation from the committee. We discussed the issue of drainage, and we spoke with the engineer regarding that. Addressing drainage as it pertains, first and foremost, addressing the actual cost of doing every road in the township is in and of itself a very large estimate, because we have a flat number per mile from the county's Department of Roads saying, if you have this kind of a road, it'll cost you this much per mile to rehabilitate it. But if the road's in a lesser condition and you have to completely rebuild it, it's going to cost you this much per mile. Well, about the only thing I can tell you is those numbers are not 100% accurate. But I have no other resource other than the county's Department of Roads to estimate what the cost to repair the roads are. I have to utilize the people that we have that do that work. I can't reinvent that wheel. So we consulted with those folks. We consulted with our township engineer. Now, it's true that constructing drainage on a road is a very, very costly process. However, we need to remember that many of our roads already have drainage. Some of our roads have limited drainage that needs to be improved, and a few of our roads have very, very poor drainage that will need to be completely reconstructed. But there are several subdivisions in our community that have drainage, and the roads need to be repaved. I'll say, for example, the Huron Point subdivision. Those residents, through an SAD process, spend a significant amount of money constructing drainage and rebuilding the roads. Now, those roads may need to be capped, and if this passes, it's reasonable that those roads be repaired or capped. But that's several miles of road that would not need drainage. However, there may be a day when perhaps we're addressing Town Hall and the engineer says this is a road that needs some drain improvements. The point is, to the extent that we can say how much will it cost to do this particular street, we can send an engineer out to that particular street and ask him to do an estimate and literally measure that street. But at this point in this process, it would be foolish for us to say that we're going to go out and measure every street and determine every cost the best that we can. This is an estimated process. The $250,000 estimate was generated by our engineer. He spoke to it at the last meeting we had earlier this month, and he did say it is an estimate, and it was his best guess. But I recognize that this process, in and of itself, is an estimate, the very process. We can only get so close with this. That's why we're saying it's up to 1.5 mils. There may be other funding that becomes available from the state in the future for local roads. Maybe this millage gets reduced to 0, or maybe 1 mil gets it done. But right now, our best estimate from a committee involving the Department of Roads, involving input from our engineer, came up with these recommendations and this cost. An issue was brought up about gravel maintenance. A couple things to point out. Currently, and for several years, we do pay for gravel maintenance on our roads. the county Department of Roads really does two types of gravel maintenance. I should say three types of maintenance. One is a dust control program where they apply some sort of a salt material, basically a brine or a salt water. It binds with the dirt and it holds the moisture so that it reduces the amount of dust in the summertime. The county agrees to do 2 applications of brine for free. Not for free, I suppose, it's the tax dollars that we've already paid, but that's included in their regular maintenance. But they have recommended in the past that 2 additional applications are really necessary to reduce the dust or to keep it at a level that's most agreeable to the residents. And well before I was involved in this, we've been paying for 2 of those treatments. So the county does 2, we do 2. For just about every year that I've been on this board, we've approved an expense of about $8,000 to do those 2 applications. The point is, this isn't necessarily a massive shift of funds, but what we're saying is if we're going to collect a tax from people to maintain roads, we should really use that tax to maintain roads. So if we're going to spend $8,000 to apply a brine, it should come from that fund. Now, that wasn't my suggestion. That was a suggestion from a board member here 2 weeks ago saying, look, shouldn't we put all of the funding that we spend on roads on here? Granted, on a $1.5 mil millage, which is going to generate something like $1.2 million, maybe $8,000 isn't a significant portion of that, but we believe that this should be the source of that funding. There were some comments about in 20 years, your road isn't going to be finished. Again, to the best that we could, we'd ask the engineer to go through and assess all the roads based on the data we had, assign a value to what it would take to do those roads, and forecast that cost. We recognize that we have to do that in today dollars. We know that the cost of the construction of the road is going to go up. I guess we don't know that, but I'm willing to bet that 20 years from now, a mile of road is going to cost more than it does today. But we're also hopeful and anticipating that with the rate of inflation capped at 5%, no matter how great the rate of inflation is, property values are going to also go up. So they haven't gone up 5% in a long time, but that is the cap that's allowed. So we're anticipating that hopefully the cost of the increase in property values generally correlates to the increase in the cost of construction. But again, to the extent that we can predict that, we can't. I would much rather not ask the residents to approve 3 mills and then just hope it all works out. If our estimate is 1.5, that's what the engineer came up with, that's what our input, that's what the committee came up with, that's what we're asking for. If 10 years from now the cost of roads triple, residents can still have a choice. We can ask them, do you want to pay more or do you want to stop the road program? We can go back to the voters to decide on what we might do. But at this point, our best estimate is 1.5 mills, 20 years, redo the roads in the township. The general fund pays for path maintenance, it's true. But again, I think we allocated up to $10,000 for sidewalk repairs. We've probably done, a few locations. Of course, if it's in your neighborhood or if it's the sidewalk you walk every day, those folks are pretty happy. We've had a couple of culverts over the last 3 years that I've been supervisor collapse in the path. We've had our water and sewer folks go out, cut that out, replace the culvert, lay down new asphalt. They keep track of those costs, and yes, those do come from the general fund. Why? Because we, again, have no other funding source. But it's been brought up in the past that we're building this path system and we're expanding the paths, and it seems like people are using them, but eventually they're going to need maintenance. So the recommendation from the committee was to allocate 2% to be set aside to do some of that. If that 2% builds over time, if we don't spend 2%, we can change that and stop allocating 2%, or perhaps the board says, well, let's build that up to a limit, maybe $50,000 or $100,000, and we'll shop that money around to see if we can get a grant to expand our paths. If someone comes along with a grant proposal, say, hey, you can get an 80-20 grant. That's how we did our last paths. For every dollar we spent on the paths, it only cost us 20 cents. We got 80 cents from the federal government. That was great. Congresswoman Miller helped us with that. We're saying maybe we want to be in a position to have that fund of money. We don't have to do that, but that was the suggestion, and that was the idea of why we were proposing this policy, so that people would know what we wish to do. If this board wishes not to have the 2%, they should say, take it out of the policy. If we adopt this policy and 5 years from now we find that 2% isn't right, we can, or a future board can say, we better revise that policy because it's not an appropriate amount. But again, based on what we studied for a good part of a year, that was what we came up with. The last issue that I wrote down was a relative to condo association funding. And again, part of what this committee did was to analyze and try to figure out what's fair. Really, the bottom line is how can we treat all of the taxpayers in the township fair? And the fact is, it seemed unfair to the committee to ask condo owners to pay a tax that they don't benefit from in front of their home. So if Mr. York lives in a condo and he pays a tax and I live on a paved residential road and I pay roughly the same tax because our home is the same, it seemed unfair for us to say that he doesn't get immediate benefit in front of his house. We all share from the fact that all the roads are going to improve, but we seem to say, well, how are we going to deal with a condo? Well, it's hard to say you're going to go in and redo a condo because they already have covenants in place and funding mechanisms. So we said, well, let's set aside some money that we can offer in some sort of a grant format. We'll have a committee draft that process, but we want to make sure that we're not asking one person to pay, another person to pay, and only giving benefit to one of those people. So is it perfect? Again, it's not, but it's our best guess at how we can treat everyone fairly. So, but again, we don't want to say that to the voters, to say, here's how we're going to spend the money. Or worse yet, we don't want to say, we're not going to tell you how we're going to spend the money, but vote yes or no on this proposal. So we're doing our best to try to draft a policy to explain to people how we would spend the money. And come November, they can vote for it, which is great. And if they vote against it, well, we can say we did our homework and the people didn't want it, and that's the second best answer. That's okay too. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Batanti to, sorry.
Did you do roll call?
Sure. To adopt the Harrison Township road improvement policies. Mr. Witt?
Yes. Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Capral?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello is excused. Mr. York?
No.
Mr. Verkust?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. That is the end of the agenda, so now we will open up the floor for public comments. Public comments can be about really anything. They're limited to 5 minutes in length.
How you doing? William Bardell, 18-year resident. I was wondering if the liaison for Candace Miller is still in the house. No? Well, what I want to say to all the residents, and I appreciate what Candace Miller has done for Selfridge and fighting to keep the F-16s and our Air Force there. And I appreciate the work that she's done on the Great Lakes with the invasive species, the Asian carp situation and so forth. But also there's two other issues that I would like everybody to check in with Candace Miller to make sure she is working on. One of the things is Canada and their nuclear waste dump site on the north side of Lake Huron. I don't know if it's a big secret or what, and I don't know if she is working on it, but I'd like everybody to give Miss Candace Miller a call and find out how that's working. The reason why people do not like nuclear is because there's no safe way to dispose of it. That's why people don't like nuclear. The other thing I want to talk about is with the Great Lakes is fracking. There's lobbying on both sides of the aisle to lobby to frack in the Great Lakes. The problem with fracking is, and that's for natural gas, cheap, feel-good natural gas. Win-win for everybody. That's how it's marketed. But the fracking cement for fracking is unregulated. The chemicals in that cement that's supposed to magically seal and not get into the underground springs is not regulated by the EPA, mysteriously. Okay? So we got to get with Candace Miller and find out if we're on the same page on this fracking, because they're lobbying to bring it to the Great Lakes. And I know we don't want it. Natural gas, it's a feel-good thing. We all want cheap natural gas to run our furnaces, and so forth. But, like I said, I appreciate what she's done with the, Selfridge, the invasive species, the Asian carp coming in off some of the big ships, supply ships. But we need to get work on what Canada's doing with this nuclear waste dump on the north side of Lake Huron. And also about this fracking. They're going to try to bring it to the Great Lakes. They're lobbying as we speak for it. So we got to make sure we get with Candace Miller and make sure she fights for our Great Lakes. Because again, that sealer cement that they use for fracking is unregulated. They will not tell you the chemicals that's in that cement. What fracking is, they drill a hole in the ground. It's like putting dynamite and they explode it. Bam! And then the natural gas comes up. So we don't want fracking in any of the Great Lakes. I don't, and I hope everyone else doesn't either. So we got to get with Candace Miller and find out. Also, nuclear waste dumps on the north side of Lake Huron. We don't want that either. They can dispose of it some other place in the ground, farther away from the Great Lakes. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Hi, Michael Miller, 25155 Orchid. I apologize for earlier. Mr. Verkust, I'd like to publicly ask you for a meeting to try to resolve this issue between myself and my neighbor. I think I left a message a week or so ago with Mr. Witt to try to sit down with you. It might not have gone anywhere, but I figured I'd come in and see you to sit down and talk about this. Today was a very interesting day for me. I don't know if you've already heard about the circumstances behind my call, but we actually have Mr. Cernicki here on video reaching into my property and moving things around for some purpose or another to try to, I would assume, take pictures of our sump pump discharge, I would guess. I'm not an attorney, but Mr. Ho, maybe you are. I believe this is a Fourth Amendment violation. That's an illegal search. Can't do that. Can't just reach in and move things around and then snap pictures of it. Drug dealers, when they're in their homes, the first things the police say before they actually smash the door open is police search warrant. I'll be happy to read that amendment for you, but I'm sure you guys as government officials already understand it. The irony in all of this whole thing here, number one, is yesterday, as you said in the beginning of the meeting, we had a huge rainstorm yesterday. Okay, our neighbor is complaining of flooding. It's a picture of the property that she's complaining about flooding about yesterday. All right, see, it is full of water. Irony here, my power was out too. My sump pump didn't work. I had nothing to do with the water that's in that puddle. I don't have anything to do with the water that's back on her property or nor in the back of mine. So I don't understand why I continue to call Mr. Cernicki for approvals on replacing fence panels or talking about air conditioners and get very little response at my address. But the day after a rainstorm and hours after I put in requests for freedom of information through the Freedom of Information Act about his conduct and what he's done on both ends, hours afterwards I have the guy intruding on my property, picking things up and snapping pictures. When I walk out front to talk to him about it, I ask him, did you just move something in the rear of my property? The response that I got is, you're going to end up in court and you're going to get a $500 fine every day that hose is still there. All the man had to do was knock on my door. I would have walked him back there. I don't understand this. I don't have to stand for this, and I won't stand for this. This is the Constitution of the United States of America. This is government tyranny, folks. Board. That's what this is. This is unfair treatment from one resident to another. The Freedom of Information requests that we put in was to prove that today. And hours later, I get this? Unbelievable. So, Mr. Verkust, we need to get to the bottom of this thing now, like very quickly. Tomorrow morning, I'll be available. But this, if this doesn't cost him his job, it should cost you yours. Because he reports to you from what I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Serville, resident. I have a few comments. First off, just one thing on this road policy. What I was talking about was the grading that they currently do, and sometimes they have to bring gravel in, like on Tucker, for instance, every spring. It becomes impassable. I don't believe we pay for that. So I suggest what you do. I don't have a problem with most of this, but I do have a problem with the part I mentioned, number 5. If you added just the word some, I have no problem with you including the chloride in there. I mentioned that when I made my presentation. It says funds will be used to pay for the maintenance of gravel roads within the township. Say some of the maintenance. Don't let the township or the county off the hook for the part that they've been doing for years. That's all I have to say on that subject. Next thing. The Macomb County Republican Party sent me an email, and I'm sure some of you other people up there got the same email. They've made a resolution in opposition of the smart millage. And their reasons for it are not that they're against moving people around through public transport. They're saying that there's been no study to see how efficient it is. After I read this, I went on Smart's own website, and I took their raw numbers, and it came out to $10.05 per ridership. Every time somebody gets on one of those buses, it costs us $10. And they're asking for a 0.41 millage. They're not saying that there's also a 0.59 millage renewal at the same time. Seems to me like they've really gambled here, because if this doesn't pass, they won't have any money, unless I'm reading things wrong. But the Macomb County Republican Party has come out against it. They're recommending that you vote no. I've already voted no. Now, the last thing I'd like to talk about is the library. In 2012, I talked to March Witowski and requested 3 different times some information on the library. How many library cards was the main question. I didn't come here last meeting, but there was a lady at the end of the meeting that said she went and asked, and she didn't get the information. So I don't know why this information for 2 years isn't available. I'm sure they must know how many library cards they have that are active. But if we take a number of 1,000 cards, and that's family cards, they've said that many times that there's more than one person on some of those cards. I'll accept that. Still $417 per card per year. Now, to put that in perspective, this whole township, except for water and sewer, operates on less money than what this half mill is. Every department in those buildings over there and in the engineering building, other than water and sewer, all operate on less than $400,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, I think it was $360,000. So it seems to me like it's an expensive thing. I have nothing against the library per se. It just, is it affordable? $417 per card seems exorbitant to me when we get all these other services for less money than that. They've also put out something. They have a website, and it shows kind of a proposed 2015 budget. And it says salary and wage benefits, 61% of the budget, but then the next one below that says IT program and computer services, and it's got $53,650. This is wages also. If you add those two together, it comes out to 74% of their total budget. They've advertised that if you vote for this, you will get things like e-books and movies and things of that nature. They are acquisitions, audio books and e-books, $30,000. That is a very small portion of $417,000. So put things in perspective, folks. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name's Carolyn Innes. I live at 38130 Maple Forest Boulevard East, Harrison Township. I've lived at this address for 20 years now, and I am currently a volunteer for the Harrison Township All-Volunteer Library. I very much appreciate the opportunity this evening to share accurate information about our library and the August 5th ballot initiative to move from volunteer-run library to a fully funded library. It seems to me that there is some misunderstandings and misinterpretations of the facts. I would like to give you the correct information. As you know, the ballot initiative is for $500,000 for a period of 10 years. The millage provides funds strictly for the operation of the Harrison Township Library. An example of the cost to homeowners who have a home of a market value of $140,000 and therefore a taxable value of $70,000 would be $35 per year, which breaks down to $2.92 a month. Libraries are very important to a vibrant community. So important now that every other municipality around us has a publicly funded library except Harrison Township. I'd like to describe to you what the millage means for our library and our community. As you've previously heard some of these, I'm sorry I'm going to be repeating. Full-time library will allow us to be open 40 hours a week. Currently, our volunteer library is only open 3 days a week. And it would give members access to ebooks for all their electronic devices. For instance, you can borrow ebooks to be loaded right on your Kindle or iPad. There would also be e-access to newspapers and magazines. Newspapers and magazines are something, when you go to any other library around here, they all have newspapers and magazines, but those are subscriptions that have to be paid for somehow, and this is part of how they would get paid through the budget. It would provide free education programs for all ages, such as story hours, Tales with Tales, Roscoe the Clown activities, computer classes, gardening classes, and many more. You heard some earlier in the comments. Also, a delivery service will be available for library materials requested by homebound community members. The Suburban Library Cooperative is also a benefit of the fully funded library. Access to this means our members would have borrowing privileges with 21 local libraries sharing more than 2 million items locally. In addition, our members would have interlibrary loan privileges at more than 400 libraries across the state of Michigan. Harrison Township residents would also have access to Michigan activity passes, which are discounts at over 70 art and cultural organizations across Michigan. And most importantly, our library will be able to have more books, more DVDs, and more computers. Every time I volunteer at the library, I'm amazed at how many people are using the computers. The computers are always busy there. Sometimes people have to wait to take their turn to use them. As mentioned earlier, the IT services, part of that is things like the computers that are available for community members to come and use the library. So, having our own fully funded public library is a better solution for residents of Harrison Township. Michigan law requires a community-funded library to have controls. A budget has been prepared and will be monitored at first by a library board appointed by the Harrison Township Board of Trustees. Then later, a library board will be elected by the residents of Harrison Township. The library board will have fiscal responsibility for oversight and operation of the library funds. With passage of this millage, the Harrison Township funded library will become a full-fledged library with paid staff, more hours, and many more opportunities and information sources for our residents. Volunteers will continue to play an important part of our library as well. Libraries are more than just books. They connect people of all ages with information, all from children to seniors, the people who need to know how to find information and to get the things that they need. And as mentioned before, we do have a library website, htplib.org. So thank you for your time, and thank you to all our volunteers and supporters, and to you, the Township Board. Thanks.
Thank you. See, oh,
We need chairs for a reason. We're not playing this game where people are hiding back to,
well,
we
yeah.
have chairs.
Yep.
and-
So what we ask residents to do is if they'd like to make public comments, we have on-deck chairs. If you wish to make a public comment, please come up forward and have a seat in a chair so that we understand that there's additional public comments.
Well, I'm sure you were just more than happy to get me up here.
You know what? I'm happy to hear
Jim
from every resident.
Senstock, 31698 San Juan. You knew I couldn't pass up the chance. I'm up here to speak about the library. I've kind of stayed in the background up to this point, but I think it's time that a few things need to be said. This is the third time this library has been up for a millage. The first millage was disapproved by the township, and basically, it was a done deal. It wasn't going to happen. But then somebody brought it back when the county offered a free library, books and racks and everything else. And a group in Harrison Township came forward and offered to run the library as a volunteer library, no-cost library. They pledged this publicly in front of this board several times. Several residents asked questions about that and said, "Are you sure? We can't believe you." Oh no, it will be a completely no-cost library. Well, guess what? They broke our trust. They came out last year and asked for a library millage. Well, what was this library millage going to pay for? Nobody would say, really. And it went down. It was a close call, and it went down. But there was no information available. So this year they figured they'd put a budget out, and they did. And it's on the website. And essentially, it's got 61% for salaries, wages, and benefits, and only 7% for all of the services that we think we're supposed to get from a library. In addition, we got an IT program and computer services cost of $53,650. The township spends for all of their IT services about $77,000. And that includes water and sewer, fire department, everything. All of them.
26,000, but
Well, I just went through the budget and grabbed off the numbers that you guys are projecting in the 2014 budget. So what is that money going to go for? Well, obviously it's going to go for somebody to get paid, somebody to get a high-paid salary doing the IT work for the library, separate from the township. It should be noted that in the current budget, or in the current budget in the township, that the IT services for the library is less than $10,000. But now they're going to need $53,650. Wow. I guess a volunteer versus a paid library makes a big difference. It's a library. Further on, farther along, it's been stated several times that people have asked, how many library cards are we talking about? I made that phone call today. In fact, I asked and got the phone number of the librarian, Melissa Goins, and called her at her home and said, "Melissa, you know, you got 453% increase in users here. I'd like to know where you got those numbers from. So what was your number in 2009 and what's your number now?" I don't have that. You wrote it. She didn't have it. But she said she would get it to me. And I said, fine, call me. And I said, if I'm not here, you can leave the number and the numbers on my answering machine so we don't miss each other. I still don't have them. So I'm going to tell you that we're talking about, and nobody can question me because I'm going to tell you there's less than 1,000 library cards out there. If there is more, somebody's got to prove it. There's less than 1,000 people, and there's 24,000 people in this township that have a library card. Is that a good spending? Is that a good way to spend $417 per library card? Do I want to pay for that? I don't. And I will be. And I'll be paying a lot more than these library millage facts says. In my neighborhood, I'll be paying close to $125. So, you know what? Don't tell me it's only $50 or $35 or whatever. It's not. I urge everybody in this township to take a look at your own individual tax bills and figure out what you're gonna pay, because there's areas in this township gonna pay a lot more than that. And let's not even consider the fact that we have all our businesses that we're trying to be friendly to, business friendly to, every one of them's gonna pay this. Every marina, every industry, everybody. It's not a good spending of money. There's communities around this area that are they're cutting their libraries back, and there's also communities around this area that are fighting with their library boards because the library board won't disclose what they're spending their money on. Washington Township just filed a lawsuit against their library for that very reason. What makes you think it's going to be any different here in Harrison Township? Please, everybody, get out. They count on you not being out on August 5th. Get out and and vote on this and vote no, because they're counting on you to stay home on that day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carol Wolf, 39246 North Bloom. To answer some questions on the library, and what we're asking for, the 413,000, that comes out to approximately 413,000. If you look at the Michigan Library Census, it's a government report, and almost all the libraries in Michigan provide this information. The average class for a library is their revenue is approximately 690,000. We are asking 413,000. So we're not being excessive with that. I think we're being very conservative. As far as the salaries go, when you look at back to the government census survey, it shows most libraries, the average library, 61% of their salaries and benefits are, that's the average, 61% is the average for salaries. So it's basically if the proportions of spending that the proposed budget is showing matches up with the average Michigan Class 4 library. Since we've opened in 2009, we've issued over 3,000 library cards. So that's basically families. We have around 11,000 households in Harrison Township. Now, this is a part-time library, too. A lot of people say, I'd like to come to the library, but it's not open. So that does affect our circulations. Last year, our circulation was 30,000 books. Or I should say items. There was, that's audiobooks, our books, and DVDs. A library is a community place to serve the residents of the community. We have children come in there, that's part of literacy. We have reading programs. We have seniors coming in there, very excited because they get to see that we have the large type books, we have the audio books for them. We have people that need to apply for jobs, and the only way they can apply for it is on a computer online. We had someone come in today, wanted to apply at Kroger's. Go to the library, apply at the library. We've had people come in there, like for weeks, persistently, filling out resumes, applying for jobs. A library is more than books. It's a service to our community, and I think we have to remember that. And as far as the district library, Washington Township is a district library. That is under a different law than our library would be. I'm not sure what all that dispute is about, but a district operates differently from a township library. Another thing too, if we have a millage, we are eligible to join the Suburban Library Co-op, which hooks us up with 21 libraries in Macomb Township. That is state funded by the state. It's on a per capita
basis that they give it to the suburban library. So that's money that we've paid to the state that we're not getting the benefit of. That gives us access to 21 local libraries and over 90 e-magazines that you can easily download sitting on your couch. And Family Circle, Automotive, National Geographic, they have 17. They have a wide array of e-magazines to download. And if we do get this millage, we will be able to be open 40 hours, which will naturally increase our traffic and increase our circulation. And it will also give us ebooks, which is great too. You're sitting on your couch, download an ebook. Great, read it. So I just think that the library is important to a community, and I hope people vote yes for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Zinner, 38400 Elmite. I'm here to not say the library's bad, but I'm here to say that I think you're barking up the wrong tree. This township has been sort of blessed with so-called good school system, but this article of July 13th, Macomb Daily, is pretty shocking if you people have read it. Real quick, the MME test by Michigan, the new state test scores that were released last week, the outcomes posted by high school juniors on the annual Michigan Merit Exam were again shocking low. But educators and the governor tried to paper over the realities by pointing out the scores are improving. But drastically more than 2/3 of the students statewide who took the MME test cannot read at their grade level. Go in the article. The ACT Test College entrance exam scores that nearly 200 high schools in Michigan did not have a single student. Now, we're spending about $7,000 to $8,000 a year on education. And blessed people in Harrison Township, the people get school of choice here. So the higher your taxes, the more people want to come here because they think they're getting a better education. Again, along with the release scores by the MME, now that's the Michigan Merit Education, results found that nearly 200 high school students in Michigan did not have a single student who was college ready by the ACT test standards. Okay? Now we can blame that on everything: money, teachers, ethics, family, single parents. The statistics are there. I ran for state rep back when Reagan was president. The statistics were there then. I thought I could make a difference. I didn't get elected by 1,100 votes out of 28,000. But I sat on this board for 12 years. I tried to do my part in government. I'm not campaigning. I don't even want to be near the government because it all should be abolished and started over, as far as I'm concerned. So the problem we have here is we've got a school system that has $100 million worth of buildings.
I'm sorry, Mr. Zinner, please address the board.
Has $100 million worth of buildings in this township. And every single one's got computers that's paid for by the taxpayers. Every single building's got a library in it. At least when I was in kindergarten, we used to go to the library in the grade schools. I'm sure they didn't abolish them, but they don't have to read, write, learn how to spell anymore, so they probably got rid of the libraries too. So this library board and this board and the school board, they need to get their act or their shit together and make those schools open to the people 12 months a year. You can hire students that need community service and they need work experience for their education and can work in those places for pennies on the dollar, and we don't have to spend another $500,000 that we got a system that's spending billions of dollars across the United States that's incompetent. So we're going to do, and the computers are sitting over there already paid for. That the school board system, since ever in beginning of time, have their little hierarchy over there, and nobody can touch it. And the only liaison that this people have in the public is this board. Jack Hart played around with it a little bit, but his loyalty was to his cronies over there in the school system. His wife worked there, his niece works there. I mean, you know, it's whatever the old good old buddy system does. But to spend money on this and throw $500,000 out when the roads, then you're gonna ask for more money to take care of the roads, the drainage, the water, the infrastructure system because it's old and antiquated. I'm sorry, this is not the way to go. There's $100 million worth of money sitting around the building, sitting here with systems in them. Should be utilized, should be open to the public. And I think what you guys need to do is get a person that's a liaison to the school board, and you people start getting active and put pressure on these schools to open it up to the public 12 months a year. This library board wants to sort of administrate it, you know, take a little bit of control of that. The buildings and everything are sitting there, first class. They keep spending bond issues and remodeling them to the finest that they can be built. You can't build them any better. Thank you, and I hope you guys read this on the facts. It was by Chad Selesky and Macomb Daily, July 13th and 14th. It's pretty shocking and disgraceful that this article even had to be written. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Linda Giacchini, 38479 Foxcroft. I grew up in this community, and for the longest time, the only libraries were my school libraries. But the libraries aren't like that anymore in the schools. They no longer have librarians. They have teachers guiding them. There's no money for new books and things like that. Yeah, I'd be a little upset. Lance Cruz's, quote, libraries in their schools close as soon as class is out. The kids can't go there after school. They're locked out. To understand this, if you want to understand costs, the alternative is to pay $200 per person to join Mount Clemens, $200 per person to join Chesterfield, to join any of the other local libraries, and then you have access to the Suburban Cooperative. So a family of 4 would be $800 per family, $800 per family. $200 per person.
Yeah. Hold on a minute, hold
Wait a
on. This is
We were
important,
told-
this is important.
I was told
Hold on,
it was per
hold on.
person.
I understand.
I'm
Hold on,
sorry.
Hold on, this is important. This is public comment, and this is why I made mention earlier that you need to address the board, because
Yes, sir.
we want to give, and we'll give you extra time. We want to give everybody a chance to comment.
Mm-hmm.
But what we don't want is, we don't want interaction with residents, because it can lead to conflict, and really what we want is nice civil debate and discussion where people can vent their opinions and discuss what it is they wish to discuss. I'll remind everybody, you know, this is a you know, a ballot issue, and so people have the right to comment, and we want to give everybody that opportunity, but we don't want to get into banter. So we want to make sure that folks that aren't at the podium don't shout out or make comments or whatever. If you were given a chance to speak, you want to give the other folks an equal chance.
Another thing, the Harrison Township Library is a volunteer library, yes. The state of Michigan does not recognize us. We cannot apply for grants necessarily that maybe Clinton Macomb could, because in the law for the state of Michigan, to be considered a true public library, you have to have a millage support your operations. I know I had to look that up from Marge. One of the things that maybe some of these people that are so against the library don't see is because they don't come to our library. They don't see our community the way we see it. We do see the children getting excited about books. We see the children get excited, they build self-esteem when they come to read to the dog, a non-judgmental companion. They don't see the people coming in and talking to their neighbor, meeting new neighbors. They don't see the friendship. One of the greatest things about this library to me has been how much we are developing into a better community. I'm watching people get their GEDs. They're so proud of coming in and trying really hard, taking out books on math and English and stuff like that, so that they can pass and get a better job, so they can have better incomes, better homes, better community. I've watched people get hired, and it's so exciting to see them come back and say, I got the job. How wonderful that is for our community, to have people who are really working to better themselves. This is what this library does. It builds a better community. I know, some people just see numbers, fine and dandy. Those numbers they can have. I want to see a better community. I want to see, teens get together and maybe have a book club through our community. Maybe have, others be able to come, like the large type. That is such a godsend for people with vision problems and for the older folks. That is such a neat thing to be able to sit and discuss and throw around ideas about, hey, what's a better, what can I read now? What can you recommend a detective, listed detective novels that would spark my interest? I'm watching all types of people come in and better themselves. That is what this community needs, is better citizenship, and we're going to get it by having this library. I thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Witt, I need to excuse myself.
Christine Ewald, 39876 Shoreline Drive, Harrison Township, longtime residents. Okay, we had an agreement, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, with Lance Cruz to use the high school library. It was in the process. The librarian, I know personally, was working with the blueprints and everything to create a library that the township residents could use. They were going to have a separate entrance, a special parking area, and that was in the works. But all of a sudden, Macomb County shut their library down. Had all these shelves and all these books, and we had the library group come forward and said, oh, we'll do this, let's do it, let us have our library, and we'll be strictly volunteer. Fine, they said fine. No, we promise we'll be strictly volunteer. So here we are on our third vote now coming up to give them millage. I found an article which they put out on their library technical organization, some statistics that was presented by them. They're saying they're servicing 26,000 people. Their volumes, they have a collection of 25,000. And they're saying their annual circulation is 15,000 transactions. Wow, 15,000 transactions? So I just did some quick numbers. They said we have 3,000 library cards. Wow, that's good. That breaks down to 5 transactions per card for a year. I cannot see a justification for this library when only 11% of the township is using this library. The cost breaks down to if you take the 61% that they've budgeted and you add the computer thing, you're talking 74% of this budget is for wages and for benefits. That breaks down to close to $6,000 a week for wages and benefits. Great jobs if you can get it. Again, I think this proposal is throwing good money after bad. They want to have their volunteer library, have fun. But for 11% of this township using it, it's not justified. And I love when they say it's only 5.5 mil. Well, that might be great for them. I personally am paying closer to $100 because of where I'm living. So a $500,000 is between 50 and 100. That's a lot of money. If you live in this township and you aren't using that library, I am urging you to get out there and vote no. This is, if you've got that money to throw away, stay home. But if you don't have that money to throw away, get out and put your vote in there to vote this down. There's only 11% of this township using this library where's the 89% that are not? So we have the upper hand here, so get out, vote, and do it. And as far as the suburban library cooperative, that includes 21 participating libraries, families join for $200 a year. And that can be as many people in your family. If you have 10 kids, it's all 200. And you can go to any one of the libraries. I found out something interesting too. If you want to read periodicals and stuff, you actually can go to the Clinton Township Library or the Mount Clemens Library and sit in there and read the magazines. You just can't check anything out of their library. And I hear the Clinton Township has a beautiful Java cafe for their people. But for $99 a year, you can join Amazon Prime. That's going to give you access to 500,000 ebooks, which are free, that you can download on your Kindle, your Android, whatever you have, as long as you put the Kindle app on, and there's no due dates. They have access to 40,000 movies and TV shows, plus music downloads. Thank you for your time. People, get out and vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Good evening, Board. Ron Legacki, Harrison Township resident. Just a couple things. Well, the main thing I should say is for the library. First of all, I want to commend all the volunteers that have devoted so much time and effort into that library. Definitely should be well commended for that effort. Again, way back when, I believe the library was going to be strictly run as a volunteer basis. It was to be funded, and please correct me if I'm wrong, by donations and fundraisers. And I think, I don't know, I've kind of walked in there once or twice just to take a look around. It looks like it's definitely a well-run library, and again, I commend everybody for all the hard work that they put into it. However, on the other hand, looking at the millage of what the monies that is asked for, it's had an article here in the Journal which they kind of broke it down, and it really was a eye-opener. I kind of looked at it, 0.5 mils on each $1,000 of taxable value. Well, just a quick example to the average taxpayer, they may not really know exactly what that means, but I kind of played around a little bit, and basically I have about a $250,000 house. Doing a little bit of math on it, I'm saying that's about $125 a year. I believe that was what it would be asking.
Half of that.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, it's half of that.
Half of that?
If your home is
Okay.
$250, it's assessed at $125, so you'd pay half of $125.
Half of what's assessed at,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, just
So
for
half of that
clarification.
money. But I
So
think
62.
the main point is what I'm trying to say is there's so many ways we're being hit with taxes within the county. It seems like it's nonstop. First thing I thought of, and I have nothing against the DIA, but if there was a way to repeal that for, say, Harrison Township and take that monies that was going to the DIA and shift it to the library, I'd be 100% for that. Since I don't know how many people actually go there and visit the DIA, but from what I understand, the numbers aren't up there. Like the lady before me was saying, maybe 11% of the people here in the township are using the library, and I don't know. That's just a percentage that was thrown out. But looking at the math and looking at the monies, what's asked, again, what is being asked for, from 2014 to 2023, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it'd be $416,000 for the first year, and then it would slowly go up with a percentage on to by 2023, it would equal around $600-some thousand.
Good.
It could. It's a possibility. I don't know where everybody lives in the township, but I live on Rivercrest, just off of Jefferson, or excuse me, off of South River Road, between South River and Metro Parkway. The crime has gone up tremendous. Website called spotcrime.com. Within a 2-week period, it was 15 incidents where cars were broken into, home invasions. Compared to 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, it's skyrocketing. That money, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, could pay for 3 additional sheriffs, 1 on each shift. I think would come to about $375,000 ballpark figure. So, I mean, with the crime going up, there's other places, other needs for the monies, I think, in the township. The infrastructure, the roads, I mean, I don't have a dirt road, but I would rather see that money spent to upgrade the township for the residents. And there's other ways where I think the monies could go as far as the infrastructure. So to put it in the library, it's really hard to swallow right now, from what we understood from the beginning. And for that much money to go into the library. I don't know, the building isn't that huge and what it's all going to be used for, but if it's going to be for wages and it's going to be for benefits and that, then I really have an issue. And I'm sure a lot of the residents have an issue with that too. If it's for books and materials and it's for learning for the kids, that's one thing. But when it comes to making astronomical amounts of monies and paychecks and benefits, we got a whole big issue. That's a separate issue and it's not a good one. That's just my opinion as a taxpaying resident. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Linda Bush, 38540 Lance Cruz, within walking distance of the wonderful volunteer library. I haven't had to come here in 10-some years, and it's really brings back some bad memories, but I see some of the same people are still here. Lord have mercy. Just a few comments on things that have been made. The one that gets me the most are the fuzzy math that they're going to pay $200 and whatever. I'm glad you corrected the gentleman that it's actually half of what his computation would be. But I think people will vote yes or no. To me, when I was here 10, 15 years ago, fighting for a millage longer than a year, I used a statement that taxes are a price we pay for a civilized society. So if you determine that a library is a good thing for a community to have, as has every other community in Macomb County, then you'll be voting yes, and we thank you, and that's who we're looking to be our supporters. But I just really get upset at the misinformation that people are putting out there to try to dash the hopes of Harrison Township having a publicly funded library. Just to go back to the history to let you know that I've been around for a long time, when there was talk of having a library at the school, all I can say is September 11th, 2001. No longer was that ever on the table that there would be a library at the schools. And you continue with the 2 words Sandy Hook, and there will not be a public library at the public schools. The public will not be allowed in schools to use for a library. So that's not even a possibility. The statement that people don't use it, so don't pay for it. I hope to not use EMS. I hope to not have any sewer problems. I hope to not be arrested or have to have police to come to my house. I hope not to get pregnant and have children and have to go to school. There are a lot of things that I think make this a good community that I don't necessarily get direct benefit from, but as a community, I get a benefit from. In terms of Amazon Prime, the advertisement for that of $89 to get books downloaded on your Kindle. I live in a condominium. A lot of people do. A lot of people's tax for the library will be way less than $89 a year, and you'll be able to go learn about bugs in your garden. You'll be able to hear Tony Wickersham talk about how to be secure in your house. So the library brings a lot more than that. To the gentleman who talked about crime, maybe if we have a full-time library open 40 hours per week, the people doing the crime will have someplace to go apply for a job, and that'll help over on Rivercrest. in terms of being able to do it with donations and fundraisers, that's just not sustainable. The volunteers are incredible. They've done an incredible thing. They carried all those books in boxes from that library. Going back to the old time, I was sat around a kitchen table planning a library, and never, ever, ever have I heard, I know some person says that he heard someone swear to it. They could have, they don't even live here anymore. Never did I ever hear that it would forever be a volunteer library. That's just not going to happen in a community that needs a full-time library. And finally, down to how much it costs to join Clinton Macomb or Mount Clemens. We have researched this, and the term is $200 per card. Not per family, not per person, per card. So for instance, a family might have two cards if they want to check out more books than one card allows, or a husband and a wife. But the policy is $200 per card, which the millage for me, at least, will be a much better bargain, plus what it means to my community. Not just me, Linda Bush, I can go have privileges and sit by the fireplace at Clinton Macomb. My community can have a library. So I want to thank all the people who have supported us, and we look forward to August 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we will close the floor for public comment. Switch to board comment. I'll at least try to do my best to address some of the questions from residents. One resident had suggested that the policy might suggest that we have revised maintenance roads to say some maintenance of roads, as opposed to saying funds will be used to pay for the maintenance of gravel roads. I'd argue the opposite could be said. It doesn't say funds will be used to pay for all maintenance of gravel roads. This is a policy. Ultimately, any decisions that are going to be made relative to expenditure of funds is going to go through a recommendation committee, but ultimately has to be decided by the Board of Trustees. Nobody in the township can spend township dollars for these types of projects except the Board of Trustees. So the board still possesses the responsibility to determine how funds are spent. This is a policy, it's a guideline. I don't know that we can define every detail in here of, how many drains or how many of these issues are going to be addressed. So I agree with the resident. I can't think of a board member that I've served with in 6 years who'd say, no, let's pay for something that the county's already doing for free. I'm pretty confident we'll try to, on the contrary, maybe leverage some of those dollars to get some additional services. Maybe we can say to the county, look, we've got some matching dollars available. Will you provide an additional service that in the long run is going to save your costs of maintenance? So I'm confident that we as a board will be able to, if the millage is passed and the voters decide to spend their dollars in the road improvement millage, that this board will be able to work with other agencies to make those dollars go as far as possible. There was a comment made that the township operates on $360,000. The township levies taxes, currently property taxes, for two main functions, police and fire. There's a small bond millage, I think it's like 0.3 or 0.1 or something,